What if the one person you've been neglecting your entire life is the one staring back at you in the mirror every morning? Not a stranger, not someone you forgot about. You, the person who carried you through your hardest days, who kept breathing when everything felt impossible, who somehow found the strength to get up again and again, and yet somehow that's the person you've been the hardest on. That's the person you forgot to take care of. And right now, in this very moment, something inside you already knows that has to change. Here's what nobody tells you. You can chase every dream, build every relationship, earn every achievement, and still feel a quiet emptiness sitting right in the center of your chest. You can check every box the world hands you and still go to bed wondering why none of it feels like enough. And the reason is painfully simple. You've been pouring into everything and everyone except the one person who needed it most, yourself. This is not about becoming selfish. This is not about ego or vanity or shutting the world out. This is about something far deeper. This is about learning to treat yourself with the same warmth, the same patience, the same devotion you've been handing out to everyone else. Because self-love is not some trendy phrase you put on a coffee mug. It is the anchor that holds your entire life in place. Without it, everything drifts. Your confidence drifts. Your relationships drift. Your peace drifts. And you spend years wondering why you feel lost when the truth is you simply lost touch with yourself. This audiobook is going to walk with you through that reconnection. Think of it as a conversation between you and the truest version of yourself, the version that has been waiting patiently for you to come back. We are going to unpack the habits that have kept you small, the beliefs that have kept you stuck, and the patterns that have quietly stolen your peace. And we are going to replace them, not with perfection, but with something real, something that lasts. By the time you reach the end of this journey, you will not just understand self-love. You will feel it in your bones. You will carry it in the way you speak, the way you choose, the way you show up for yourself every single day. So take a breath. Settle into wherever you are right now. You are exactly where you need to be. And this, right here, is where your life starts to shift. Chapter 1. The Quiet Drift, How You Lost Yourself Without Even Noticing. There is a slow kind of disappearing that nobody warns you about. It does not happen in a dramatic moment. There is no explosion, no obvious breaking point, no single event you can point to and say, "That's when I stopped being myself." It happens quietly, gradually, like sand slipping through your fingers while you are busy looking somewhere else. It starts with small things. You laugh at a joke that does not feel funny because everyone else is laughing. You agree with an opinion you do not actually hold because disagreeing feels too risky. You say, "I'm fine," when your chest feels heavy because you have trained yourself to believe that your feelings are an inconvenience. You swallow your truth one tiny piece at a time until one day you realize you cannot even remember what your truth tastes like. And here's the part that really stings. You did not drift away from yourself because you were careless. You drifted because you were trying so hard to be good. Good enough for your family, good enough for your friends, good enough for the world. You bent yourself into shapes that were never yours to hold, and you did it with the best intentions. You wanted to belong. You wanted to matter. You wanted to be loved. And somewhere along the way, you traded pieces of yourself for the illusion of acceptance. But acceptance built on self-erasure is not real acceptance. It is a cage dressed up as belonging, and you have been sitting inside it for far too long. Coming back to yourself is not a dramatic reinvention. It is not about throwing your life away and starting from scratch. It is about pausing, just pausing, long enough to hear your own voice underneath all the noise, long enough to ask yourself questions you have been avoiding. What do I actually want? Not what am I supposed to want? What do I genuinely need? Not what will keep everyone else comfortable. These questions might feel uncomfortable at first. That is completely normal. When you have spent years outsourcing your identity to other people's expectations, reconnecting with your own desires can feel foreign. Like speaking a language you once knew fluently but have not practiced in years. It feels clumsy. It feels uncertain. But the words are still there. They have always been there, waiting for you to use them again. Think about the relationship you have with yourself as if it were a garden. For years, you have been watering everyone else's flowers while your own soil went dry. The seeds of who you truly are did not die. They just went dormant. They are still beneath the surface, waiting for attention, waiting for nourishment, waiting for you to kneel down and say, I see you. I'm here now. Returning to yourself also means reclaiming the parts of your identity that you tucked away because someone made you feel like they were too much. Maybe you were told your emotions were overwhelming. Maybe you were told your dreams were unrealistic. Maybe you were told that who you are naturally, without performance, without editing, was somehow not acceptable. And because you wanted love, because you craved connection, you filed those parts of yourself away in a drawer you promised to open later. Later is now. Those parts of you, the loud ones, the soft ones, the ambitious ones, the sensitive ones, they are not flaws. They are features. They are the raw material of the person you were always meant to be. And they have been waiting, patiently, loyally, for the day you would stop apologizing for them and start embracing them. Here is something important to understand. This process of coming back to yourself is not selfish. In fact, it is the most generous thing you can do. When you are disconnected from yourself, every relationship you build, every decision you make, every interaction you have comes from a place of depletion. You are giving from an empty cup and wondering why you feel so drained. But when you reconnect with yourself, when you tend to your own garden first, you start giving from overflow. Your relationships become richer. Your decisions become clearer. Your presence becomes steadier. People feel the difference. You feel the difference. So consider this your permission slip. Not that you need one, but sometimes it helps to hear it. You are allowed to come back to yourself. You're allowed to prioritize your inner world. You're allowed to stop performing and start being. This is where everything begins. Chapter 2. Tearing Down the Walls. You built with borrowed beliefs. Now let's talk about something that sits underneath almost every struggle with self-love. The beliefs, not the ones you chose, the ones that were handed to you, the ones that seeped into your identity so slowly, so quietly, that you never thought to question them. They just became part of the wallpaper of your mind, always there, always shaping the room, but never examined. Beliefs like, I have to earn love. I am only valuable when I am productive. My worth depends on how useful I am to others. If I fail, I am a failure. If someone leaves, it must be because I was not enough. These are not truths. They are inherited stories. They were passed down through families, through culture, through painful experiences, through offhand comments that landed in your heart at exactly the wrong moment. And the tragedy is not that you heard them. The tragedy is that you believed them, not because you were gullible, but because you were young, or hurting, or trusting, or simply did not have the tools yet to push back. Let me ask you something. If a friend came to you and said, "I don't think I deserve to be happy unless I'm perfect," what would you tell them? You would probably hold their hand, look them in the eye, and say, "That's not true. You deserve happiness just as you are." You would say it with conviction because you would mean it. So why is it so hard to say that to yourself? Because the lies about your worth did not arrive with a warning label. They came disguised as love. They came disguised as discipline. They came wrapped in the voice of a parent who was doing their best, but was also carrying their own unhealed wounds. They came through the casual cruelty of a classmate, the indifference of a partner, the impossible standards of a culture that measures people by their output instead of their existence. And here's the thing about borrowed beliefs. They feel like concrete, but they are actually made of paper. They only hold weight because you have never held them up to the light. The moment you examine them, really examine them, they begin to crumble. Your worth is not a performance review. It does not go up when you succeed and down when you stumble. It is not a stock price that fluctuates with the market of other people's opinions. Your worth is a constant. It was there the day you were born, and it has not changed since. Not when you failed that exam. Not when that relationship ended. Not when you made that decision you still regret. Not when someone looked at you and decided you were not enough. Their judgment did not reduce your value. It revealed their limitation. Now let's talk about comparison, because this is where so many people quietly lose themselves. You open your phone, and within minutes, you are measuring your life against someone else's curated highlight reel. Their career looks more successful. Their body looks more polished. Their relationship looks more perfect. Their confidence looks more effortless. And without even realizing it, you start writing a story in your head. A story that says everyone else figured it out except you. A story that says you are behind. But behind what? Behind who? There is no universal timeline for a human life. There is no scoreboard in the sky keeping track of who hit which milestone first. The person you are comparing yourself to is fighting battles you know nothing about. They are carrying doubts you cannot see. They are performing a version of themselves that may be just as exhausting as the version you have been performing. Comparison does not show you the truth. It shows you a distortion. And building your self-worth on a distortion is like building a house on sand. It will never feel stable. So what do? With all these borrowed beliefs? You return them, not with anger, not with blame, with awareness. You hold each one up and ask, is this mine? Did I choose this? Does this serve the person I am becoming? And if the answer is no, you set it down, gently but firmly. You do not need to carry what was never yours to hold. This is not about blaming your parents. This is not about resenting your past. This is about taking ownership of your present. It is about saying, I understand how these beliefs got here, but I am the one who decides what stays. Imagine peeling old wallpaper off a wall. Underneath, the wall is still solid. It just needs fresh paint. That is what you're doing right now. You're not rebuilding yourself from nothing. You are uncovering the version of yourself that was always there, underneath the borrowed stories, the inherited fears, the secondhand doubts. And once those walls come down, something remarkable happens. You start seeing yourself clearly, not through the distorted lens of someone else's opinion, but through your own eyes. And what you see is not someone who is not enough. What you see is someone who has survived every single thing life has thrown at them. Someone who is still here, still breathing, still trying, still hoping. That person deserves love, not because they earned it, because they exist. Chapter 3. The price of always saying yes when your soul is screaming. No, let's get honest about something most people refuse to admit. One of the deepest ways you have been hurting yourself has nothing to do with what anyone else did to you. It has everything to do with what you did to yourself in their name. Every time you said yes, when every fiber of your being was screaming no. Every time you swallowed your needs to keep the atmosphere pleasant. Every time you bent yourself so far backward to accommodate someone else that you nearly broke, that was not kindness. That was self-abandonment. And it is one of the most expensive habits a human being can develop. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The time you agreed to help when you were already running on fumes. The time you laughed off a comment that actually cut deep. The time you pretended you did not care because caring felt too vulnerable. The time you stayed in a situation that was slowly dimming your light because leaving felt scarier than suffering. Each of those moments cost you something. Not money, something more valuable. A piece of your self-respect. A sliver of your authenticity. A fraction of your trust in yourself. And when you stack all those tiny losses together, they form something enormous. A life where you barely recognize yourself anymore. Here is what drives self-abandonment at its core. The belief that other people's comfort matters more than your own truth. The belief that if you disappoint someone, you will lose them. The belief that love requires you to become invisible. But think about it. What kind of love asks you to disappear? What kind of connection demands that you erase your boundaries? What kind of relationship only works when you are performing a version of yourself that does not actually exist? That is not love. That is a transaction. And you have been paying a price you never agreed to. The approval you have been chasing is like ocean water. The more you drink, the thirstier you get. You can exhaust yourself trying to be everything for everyone, and it will never be enough because the target always moves. The people who need you to abandon yourself in order to stay will always need more. More of your time, more of your energy, more of your silence, more of your compliance. And the more you give, the less of you remains. But here is the beautiful, terrifying truth. The moment you stop abandoning yourself, things change. Some people will not like the new you. Some people will feel uncomfortable when you start saying no. Some people will push back when you set a boundary for the first time. Some people will call you difficult, selfish, or changed. And they are right about one thing. You have changed. You have decided that your peace is no longer up for negotiation. And the people who genuinely love you, the ones who are worth keeping, they will adjust. They will respect the boundary. They might not understand it immediately, but they will honor it because they value you as a whole person, not just the convenient parts. Start paying attention to the moments when you abandon yourself. They are usually small and easy to dismiss. The forced agreement, the swallowed opinion, the "it's fine" when it clearly is not, the over-explaining you do when you set even the smallest boundary, the guilt you feel for simply having needs. Each of those moments is a signal that you are choosing someone else's comfort over your own wholeness. And a life built on constantly choosing other people's comfort is a life that eventually caves in on itself, not with a dramatic collapse, but with a slow, steady sinking, a quiet exhaustion that becomes so normal you forget there was ever a time you felt alive. Self-love asks you to do something radical. It asks you to be loyal to yourself first, not in a cold way, not in a cruel way, but in a way that says, I matter too. My feelings count. My needs are valid. My voice deserves to be heard. And when you start living from that place, everything shifts. Your relationships become healthier because they are built on truth instead of performance. Your energy returns because you are no longer pouring yourself into a bottomless hole. Your confidence grows because you are no longer betraying yourself 100 times a day. You have to decide, and I mean really decide, that temporary discomfort is worth long-term peace. That the awkwardness of saying no is better than the resentment of saying yes. That the risk of losing someone who only loves your compliance is better than the certainty of losing yourself. This is not easy. Nobody said it would be, but it is necessary. And I want you to understand something that might help you make this shift. The people who genuinely belong in your life will not be threatened by your boundaries. They will not punish you for having needs. They will not make you feel guilty for choosing yourself. The right people will see your self-respect, and they will admire it. They will adjust. They will meet you where you are, because real love, real friendship, real connection does not require you to erase yourself. It requires you to show up fully. The ones who leave when you start choosing yourself were never holding you. They were holding a version of you that served them, and losing that version is not losing love. It is making room for the kind of love that does not ask you to disappear. And the moment you make that decision, the moment you refuse to leave yourself behind one more time, something inside you clicks into place, something that feels like home, not a place, a feeling. The feeling of finally being on your own side. The feeling of knowing that no matter what happens out there, in here, within yourself, you are safe. You are chosen. You are staying. Chapter 4. Drawing Lines in the Sand. Teaching the world how you expect to be treated. Here is a truth that will change the way you see every relationship in your life. People do not treat you based on your value. They treat you based on what you allow. Your standards are not invisible. They are broadcast through every action you take, every behavior you tolerate, every situation you stay in. And the world reads those signals with remarkable accuracy. When you accept being treated as an afterthought, the world learns you are okay with being an afterthought. When you tolerate being spoken to with disrespect, the world learns that your boundaries are suggestions, not rules. When you stay in environments that shrink you, the world assumes you are comfortable being small. But here is where it flips. The moment you raise your standards, the moment you communicate through your behavior that you will not accept anything less than what you deserve, the entire dynamic changes. You do not have to give speeches about your worth. You do not have to convince anyone. You simply have to live it, and the right people will notice. Setting standards starts with something most people skip: clarity. You cannot protect what you have not defined. So let me ask you, what does respect look like for you? Not in theory, in practice, in your daily life. What does it look like in a conversation? What does it look like in a relationship? What does it look like at work? What does it look like in the way someone speaks to you, treats your time, honors your energy? If you have never sat down and clearly defined these things, then your standards are vague. And vague standards produce vague results. They produce that uncomfortable feeling of knowing something is wrong but not being able to name it. They produce the pattern of tolerating behavior that hurts you because you cannot quite articulate why it crosses the line. Get specific. Write it down if you have to. I deserve honesty. I deserve consistency. I deserve effort. I deserve to be spoken to with kindness. I deserve to be someone's priority, not their backup plan. I deserve relationships where my feelings are taken seriously. I deserve environments where my growth is encouraged, not mocked. These are not demands. These are the baseline, the bare minimum. And if the bare minimum feels like a lot to ask, that tells you something important about how long you have been settling. Now here is the part that trips people up. Standards are not built with words. They are built with consequences. You can tell someone 1,000 times that you deserve better. But if they disrespect you and nothing changes, if you stay, if you absorb it, if you make excuses for it, your words mean nothing. Your actions are speaking louder, and they are saying, "This is acceptable." That does not mean you have to be aggressive. It does not mean you have to blow up at people. It means you have to be consistent. When someone crosses a line, there must be a response, not a punishment, a natural consequence. Sometimes that means a conversation. Sometimes that means distance. Sometimes that means walking away entirely. And yes, raising your standards might cost you people. That thought is scary. I understand that. The fear of being alone, of losing connection, of being seen as too demanding, it keeps so many people locked in situations that are slowly destroying them. But I want you to consider something. The people you lose by raising your standards were never really there for you in the first place. They were there for the version of you that made their lives easier. The accommodating version, the silent version, the version without boundaries. The people who stay, the ones who rise to meet your standards, those are your people. Those are the ones who see your worth and choose to honor it. And you cannot find them while your life is crowded with people who do not. There is another dimension to this that most people overlook. Your standards for others must match your standards for yourself. You cannot demand kindness from others while speaking to yourself with contempt. You cannot ask for honesty while lying to yourself about what you really feel. You cannot expect effort from others while refusing to put effort into your own growth. The way you treat yourself sets the compass for how others navigate their way around you. When you carry yourself with dignity, people respond to that. When you speak about yourself with respect, people follow that lead. When your actions say, "I value my time, my energy, my peace," people adjust accordingly. Setting a standard is one of the purest forms of self-love because it says, "I have decided what kind of life I am willing to live, and I will not negotiate on the things that matter." It is not about building walls. It is about installing doors, doors that you control, doors that open for the people who deserve entry and close for the ones who do not. And the beautiful thing is, once your standards are clear and consistent, you stop attracting the same painful patterns. You stop finding yourself in the same draining situations. You stop wondering why you keep ending up in relationships that feel like work, because your standards become a filter, quietly sorting the world into what belongs in your life and what does not. You deserve a life where you do not have to beg for the basics. You deserve a life where the people around you know exactly what you stand for. You deserve a life where your boundaries are honored, not because you enforced them with anger, but because you embodied them with conviction. And I want to leave you with this thought. Raising your standards is not a one-time event. It is a continuous process. As you grow, your standards grow with you. What you tolerated a year ago may no longer be acceptable today. And that is not inconsistency. That is evolution. You are allowed to update your standards as you learn more about yourself. You're allowed to decide that what was once good enough no longer qualifies. You're allowed to outgrow situations, relationships, and environments that once served you. That is not being difficult. That is being alive. Every time you hold a standard, you send a message, not just to others, but to yourself. A message that says, I believe I deserve this. And the more you send that message, the more deeply you begin to believe it. Standards are not just about other people. They are about the story you tell yourself about your own value. And when that story changes, when you truly begin to believe that you deserve kindness, effort, consistency, and respect, your entire experience of life transforms. That is the power of a standard. It teaches the world how to love you by showing the world how you love yourself. Chapter 5. The Sacred Discipline of Showing Up for Yourself Every Day. Let me tell you something that might change the way you think about self-love forever. It is not a feeling. It is a practice. It is not something that washes over you in a moment of inspiration and stays forever. It is something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice, day after day. And the bricks are small. They are ordinary. They are unglamorous. But stacked together over time, they create something unshakable. Self-respect, real self-respect, is not about confidence or boldness or the way you walk into a room. It is about the quiet agreement you make with yourself every morning when no one is watching. The agreement that says, I will not betray myself today. I will keep the promises I made to myself. I will treat my own growth with the seriousness it deserves. Most people break promises to themselves all the time and barely notice. You tell yourself you will start that habit tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and goes. You tell yourself you will stop tolerating a certain behavior. The behavior continues and you say nothing. You tell yourself you will prioritize rest, your health, your peace, and then you push it aside the moment something more urgent appears. And each time you break a promise to yourself, a tiny crack forms in the foundation of your self-trust. One crack is nothing. 2 cracks are manageable. But after years of quiet, consistent self-betrayal, the foundation becomes fragile. And you wonder why you do not trust yourself. You wonder why you feel shaky inside. You wonder why you cannot commit to the things you say you want. The answer is simple and painful. You have taught yourself through repeated action that your own word does not mean much, not because you are weak, because you were never taught to treat self-commitment as sacred. But here is the good news. Every single day is an opportunity to rebuild that trust, and it does not require perfection. It requires small acts of follow-through, tiny moments where you do what you said you would do. You said you would go to bed earlier. You do it. You said you would stop responding to that person who drains you. You hold the boundary. You said you would spend 10 minutes in the morning with your own thoughts. You protect those 10 minutes. These moments seem insignificant, but they are everything. They are the moments where self-respect is actually forged, not in grand gestures, not in dramatic declarations, in small, consistent, deliberate choices that prove to your own nervous system that you are someone you can count on. And let me be real with you about something. Discipline gets a bad reputation. People associate it with restriction, with punishment, with forcing yourself to do things you hate. But discipline, when it comes from a place of self-love, is one of the kindest things you can offer yourself. It is the voice that says, I know you want to stay up scrolling for another hour, but the version of you who wakes up rested tomorrow matters more. It is the voice that says, I know it feels easier to avoid that difficult conversation, but the version of you who lives with integrity deserves your courage. Discipline rooted in self-love is not about suffering. It is about alignment. It is about making choices that honor the person you are becoming rather than catering to the impulses of the moment. The moment will pass. The version of you that those choices build will remain. Think about the habits in your life right now, not the ones you talk about, the ones you actually live. Are they supporting the future you want? Or are they just soothing the discomfort you feel today? Are they building something or are they numbing something? There is a critical difference, and your answer matters more than you might think. Now, I want to acknowledge something important. There will be days when you do not follow through, days when the old habits win, days when you slip back into patterns you thought you had outgrown. That does not erase your progress. It does not mean you have failed. It means you are human. The goal is not a perfect streak. The goal is a trend, a general direction, a gradual shift from self-neglect toward self-commitment. And here is what happens when you start showing up for yourself consistently. Something inside you shifts, not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily. You start to feel different. You start to carry yourself differently. A quiet confidence begins to form, not the loud kind that needs an audience, but the deep kind that comes from knowing you can trust yourself. You feel more grounded, more stable, more connected to your own center of gravity. And other people notice, not because you announce it, because you embody it. There is a difference between someone who talks about self-respect and someone who lives it. The person who lives it has a certain steadiness about them, a certain calm, a certain gravity that draws others in and commands respect without ever demanding it. There is a compounding effect to daily self-respect that most people underestimate. On day 1, the change is invisible. On day 10, it is subtle. On day 30, you begin to notice something shifting. On day 90, you realize you are not the same person you were when you started. And on day 365, you look back and barely recognize the version of yourself that used to break every promise they made to themselves. That is the power of consistency. It does not need to be dramatic. It just needs to be daily. And let me say this clearly. You do not have to do it all at once. You do not have to wake up tomorrow and become a perfectly disciplined human being. Start with one promise, one small commitment that you keep no matter what. Maybe it is 10 minutes of quiet in the morning. Maybe it is putting your phone away an hour before bed. Maybe it is one honest conversation with yourself each day, just one, and keep it. Then add another and another. Let the momentum build naturally. Trust the process. Trust yourself enough to begin. That is what daily self-respect builds, not perfection, presence, not an image, an identity, not something you perform, something you become. Chapter 6. The art of being gentle with yourself in a world that taught you to be harsh. Here's something I want you to really hear, not just with your mind, but with whatever part of you has been aching for permission to rest. You have been so incredibly hard on yourself, and most of the time, you did not even realize it. You held yourself to standards you would never impose on another human being. You punished yourself for mistakes that anyone could have made. You replayed your worst moments on a loop while fast-forwarding through everything you did right. You told yourself that being hard on yourself was productive, that self-criticism was the engine of improvement, that if you were just tough enough with yourself, you would eventually become someone worth loving. But that is not how love works, not with others, and certainly not with yourself. Think about the last time someone you cared about made a mistake. A real one, the kind that came with consequences. What did you do? You probably sat with them. You probably told them it was going to be okay. You probably reminded them that one bad chapter does not define an entire story. You gave them room to breathe, room to be imperfect, room to try again without carrying the full weight of their failure on their back. Now think about the last time you made a mistake. What did you do? If you are like most people, you probably did the opposite of everything I just described. You probably spiraled. You probably replayed the moment over and over, adding layers of shame with each repetition. You probably told yourself you should have known better, done better, been better. You probably withheld from yourself the very compassion you would have freely given to a stranger. Why? Why do you treat yourself as the one person who does not deserve understanding? The answer, for most people, goes back to something they learned early. Somewhere along the way, you absorbed the idea that gentleness toward yourself was weakness. That self-compassion was laziness wearing a nice name. That the only way to grow was to punish yourself into it. And that belief has cost you more than you know. It has cost you peace. It has cost you confidence. It has cost you the ability to recover from setbacks without turning them into identity crises. But compassion is not the opposite of growth. It is the soil growth depends on. A seed does not grow because you scream at it. It grows because you give it light, water, and time. You are no different. You grow when you are nurtured. You grow when you are given room to fail without being destroyed by it. You grow when the voice inside your head sounds more like a mentor and less like a bully. Self-compassion means acknowledging the effort even when the result was not perfect. It means saying, I did the best I could with what I had at the time, and next time I will know more. It means treating your healing like a journey, not a deadline. It means understanding that growth is not a straight line. It zigzags. It circles back. It sometimes looks like standing still when underneath the surface everything is shifting. And here is what changes when you start being gentle with yourself. Your nervous system calms down. That constant state of tension, that feeling of always bracing for the next criticism, even when the criticism is coming from inside your own head, it begins to soften. You start to feel safer in your own mind. You start to trust yourself more because you know that even if you fall, you will not be destroyed by your own reaction to it. Your creativity opens up because you are no longer terrified of making mistakes. Your relationships improve because you stop projecting your inner harshness onto the people around you. Your energy increases because self-criticism is exhausting. It takes enormous mental resources to constantly monitor, evaluate, and punish yourself. When you release that pattern, you free up energy you did not even know you were spending. I am not suggesting you lower your standards. I am suggesting you change your methods. You can hold yourself to high standards and still be kind when you fall short. You can want more for yourself and still accept where you are today. You can push yourself to grow and still offer yourself rest when you need it. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. And it is the foundation of a self-love that actually lasts. There is another layer to this that people rarely talk about. Self-compassion also means being gentle with your timeline. You look at other people and you see how far they have come, and you compare it to your own pace and feel ashamed. But you do not know what they walked through to get there. You do not know the help they had, the resources they accessed, the doors that opened for them by circumstance. Your journey is uniquely yours, and the fact that it has taken longer does not mean something is wrong with you. It means your path has a different terrain, different mountains, different valleys, different weather, and that is okay. You do not need to arrive on anyone else's schedule. You just need to keep walking. Self-compassion also means accepting that some days your best is going to look different than other days. Some days your best will be productive and sharp and focused. Other days your best will be simply getting out of bed and making it through. Both versions of your best are valid. Both versions deserve respect. The measure of your worth is not how impressive your output is on any given day. It is how willing you are to keep showing up, even when showing up feels like the hardest thing in the world. So the next time you catch yourself in the middle of a mental beating, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself one question. Would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, do not say it to yourself. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone who needs encouragement. Because right now, that someone is you. Chapter 7. Opening the doors you have kept locked. Facing what you have been running from, there is a room inside you that you do not like to visit. You know the one, the room where you store everything you are not ready to deal with. Old grief you never fully processed. Guilt from choices you wish you could undo. Fear that has been sitting in the corner so long it almost feels like furniture. Pain that you told yourself you were over, but that still sends a sharp sting through your chest when something unexpected reminds you of it. You have kept that door closed for a long time, and honestly, it made sense. At some point in your life, closing that door was a survival strategy. You were not equipped to deal with what was behind it. You did not have the tools, the support, or the emotional bandwidth, so you sealed it shut and kept moving. And that decision kept you alive. It kept you functioning. It got you through seasons that might have otherwise swallowed you whole. But here's the problem with locked doors. They do not stay quiet forever. The things behind them do not disappear just because you stop looking at them. They knock, they rattle, they seep through the cracks in ways you do not always recognize. That anxiety you cannot explain, that anger that flares up over small things, that pattern of pushing people away right when they get close, that habit of numbing yourself with distraction whenever silence gets too loud. Those are not random behaviors. They are echoes from behind the door. Healing is what happens when you decide to open it, not all at once, not recklessly, but with intention, with courage, and with the understanding that what you find inside is not evidence of your brokenness. It is evidence of your humanity. Facing your wounds does not mean reliving every painful moment in full color. It means acknowledging what happened. It means allowing yourself to feel what you suppressed. It means looking at the experiences that shaped your behavior and saying, "This hurt me, and it is still affecting me, and I am ready to do something about it." One of the bravest things you can do is admit that you are still affected by something. In a world that celebrates toughness and moving on, admitting that an old wound still stings can feel like weakness. But it is not weakness. It is the beginning of freedom, because the moment you stop pretending a wound does not exist is the moment it starts to lose its power over you. Ask yourself, what have you been running from? What feelings have you been stuffing down? What memories do you avoid? What parts of your story have you never spoken out loud? Not because they are shameful, but because you were afraid that saying them would make them more real. They are already real. They have been real this entire time. The only thing that changes when you face them is that they stop controlling you from the shadows. Healing also requires something that many people resist: forgiveness. Not necessarily forgiveness of the people who hurt you, though that may come in time, but forgiveness of yourself for the times you stayed when you should have left, for the times you trusted someone who was not worthy of your trust, for the times you did not know how to cope and chose a path that made things worse, for the times you silenced your own instincts because someone else's voice was louder. You did not fail. You survived. And the coping mechanisms you used, even the ones you are not proud of, they were the best tools you had at the time. Now you have better tools. Now you have awareness. Now you have the capacity to choose differently. And that is what healing is. Not erasing the past, choosing a different relationship with it. Be patient with yourself through this process. Healing does not follow a schedule. Some weeks you will feel like you are making incredible progress. Other weeks you will feel like you are right back where you started. Neither of those feelings tells the full story. Healing is happening even when you cannot see it. Just like a bone that is mending beneath a cast, the repair work is invisible until one day you realize you can move in ways you could not before. And here is what waits for you on the other side. Not a life without pain. That is not realistic. And anyone who promises you that is selling something. What waits for you is a life where pain no longer drives your decisions. A life where your wounds inform your wisdom instead of dictating your behavior. A life where you are no longer running but standing, grounded, aware, and whole. That is the gift of healing, not perfection. Wholeness. Chapter 8. Shedding the skin that no longer fits. Letting go of who you used to be. Growth has a cost that nobody talks about. Not the cost of effort or discipline or discomfort, the cost of release. Because becoming the person you are meant to be requires letting go of the person you have been. And that letting go, even when it is necessary, even when it is healthy, can feel like grief. You are not the same person you were 5 years ago. You are not the same person you were last year. You may not even be the same person you were last month. Something inside you has shifted. Your awareness has expanded. Your tolerance for things that once seemed normal has decreased. Your desire for peace, for authenticity, for something real has grown louder. And yet, a part of you is still clinging to an older version of yourself. Not because that version was better, but because that version was familiar. Familiarity is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. Even when a situation is painful, if it is familiar, your brain will fight to keep it. Because familiar means predictable, and predictable means safe. Your brain does not care if the pattern is good for you. It cares that the pattern is known. And that is why so many people stay stuck. Not because they cannot change, but because change means stepping into the unknown. And the unknown, even when it holds everything you have been praying for, is terrifying. But here is the thing about the old version of you. It served its purpose. The person who people pleased to survive difficult dynamics, that version kept you connected when connection felt critical. The person who dimmed their light to fit in, that version protected you from standing out when standing out felt dangerous. The person who carried everything alone, that version got you through seasons when there was no one else to lean on. Those versions of you were not failures. They were armor, and they did their job. But the battle is different now. The threats have changed. The environment has changed. And the armor that once protected you is now restricting you. It is keeping you small in spaces where you are meant to expand. It is keeping you quiet in moments where you are meant to speak. It is keeping you safe in a way that has started to feel like a prison. Letting go does not mean you are ungrateful. It means you are growing. It means you are honoring the journey enough to keep moving. It means you are saying, that chapter served me, but this is a new chapter, and I need to show up differently for it. One of the hardest things to release is the identity built around your past mistakes. You replay old decisions. You punish your current self for things your former self did with limited awareness. You carry guilt like it is a responsibility and shame like it is a permanent tattoo. But guilt that has been processed should eventually become a lesson, not a life sentence. Shame that has been examined should eventually become awareness, not an anchor. You are not your worst moments. You are not the sum of your regrets. You are the person who learned from those moments and chose to keep going. And that person deserves to be free. Release also means letting go of the stories you have been telling yourself on repeat. Stories like, I always end up alone. I am not the kind of person good things happen to. I always sabotage myself. These narratives feel like truth because you have been repeating them for so long, but repetition does not equal reality. It equals habit, and habits can be broken. The moment you stop repeating those old stories is the moment new ones can begin. Not fairy tales, real stories, stories where you are allowed to change, stories where you are allowed to succeed, Stories where you're allowed to be someone different from who you were at your lowest. Letting go of your past self is not a betrayal. It is a graduation. You took the lessons. You passed the tests. And now it is time to walk into a new chapter without dragging the entire classroom behind you. And here is what happens when you finally release. Space opens up. Mental space, emotional space, energetic space. The heaviness lifts. The constant inner tug of war between who you were and who you want to be finally settles. And in that open space, something new begins to take root. A version of you that is clearer, calmer, more intentional, and more aligned with the life you are building. That version has been waiting for you to make room. Let go and let them in. And here's the part that nobody tells you about letting go. It does not just free you from the past. It changes the way you experience the present. When you are no longer weighted down by old identities, old shame, and old expectations, you become lighter. Not in a superficial way, in a fundamental way. You laugh more easily, you breathe more deeply, you connect more genuinely, you make decisions faster because you are no longer filtering every choice through the lens of who you used to be. Letting go is not a one-time event. It is something you will have to do over and over again, because growth never stops. And as long as you keep growing, there will always be a previous version of yourself that needs to be honored and released. That is not exhausting. That is beautiful. It means you are alive. It means you are evolving. It means you are refusing to stagnate in a world that is constantly inviting you to expand. So give yourself permission. Permission to grow beyond your past. Permission to become someone your history never imagined. Permission to surprise yourself. The person you're becoming is worth every ounce of courage it takes to let go of who you were. Chapter 9. Planting seeds today that your future self will be grateful for. There was a version of you living somewhere in the future, a version that is wiser, more grounded, more at peace, more confident, a version that has weathered more storms and come out stronger. That version of you is not a fantasy. They are a possibility. And whether or not they come to life depends almost entirely on the choices you make today. Every habit you keep, every pattern you tolerate, every decision you make, whether big or small, is casting a vote for the kind of person you will become. And the uncomfortable truth is this: most people are unknowingly voting against their future selves, not out of malice, out of habit, out of comfort, out of the very human desire to feel okay right now, even if it costs them later. You procrastinate because the task feels overwhelming. But the version of you who faces next week's deadline with nothing done will pay for that avoidance. You scroll through your phone for hours because your brain craves stimulation. But the version of you who wakes up exhausted and unfocused tomorrow will feel the cost. You stay in a relationship that has been draining you for months because leaving is terrifying. But the version of you who spends another year in that same cycle will carry even deeper wounds. These are not judgments. They are observations. And they are invitations. Invitations to start making choices that serve your future instead of just soothing your present. Choosing habits that honor your future self is one of the most practical and powerful forms of self-love. It is the version of self-love that does not just say, "I matter," it proves it. Every time you choose the workout over the couch, you are telling your future self, "Your health matters to me." Every time you walk away from a conversation that drains your energy, you're telling your future self, your peace matters to me. Every time you keep a promise you made to yourself, you're telling your future self, you can count on me. And here is what most people miss. You do not need to overhaul your entire life in a single day. You just need to start making slightly better choices more often than you make self-sabotaging ones. Growth is not about revolution. It is about repetition. It is about small, deliberate movements in the right direction, compounded over weeks and months and years, until one day you look up and realize you are living a completely different life. Start small. Protect your sleep. It is the foundation everything else is built on. Limit your exposure to people and content that leave you feeling worse about yourself. Move your body even gently, because your physical state and your emotional state are more connected than you think. Create a morning routine that feeds your mind before the world starts feeding you its chaos. Set a rule about how you spend the last hour before bed. Small things, ordinary things, things that do not look impressive on the surface but are quietly reshaping your entire inner landscape. And remember, discipline is not punishment. When it comes from a place of love, discipline is the bridge between the life you have and the life you want. It is the daily act of choosing alignment over impulse, long-term peace over short-term relief. It is not about depriving yourself. It is about directing yourself with kindness and clarity toward the future you deserve. There is something else worth saying here. Choosing habits that honor your future self also means releasing the habits that belong to a past version of you. The coping mechanisms that kept you alive during hard times may not be the habits that help you thrive in better times. The patterns you developed to survive chaos do not belong in the calm you're building. You have to be willing to examine your habits honestly and ask, is this serving the person I am becoming? Or is this a relic of the person I used to be? Sometimes the hardest habit to break is the habit of settling. Settling for less energy, settling for less joy, settling for less peace, because settling has become so familiar that it feels like normal. But it is not normal. It is just what you got used to. And getting used to something does not mean you have to accept it forever. Your future self is not a stranger. They are you, shaped by every choice you make from this moment forward. They are watching, they are waiting, and they are hoping you will choose wisely today so that they can live freely tomorrow. Be kind to them, build for them, plant seeds today that they will be grateful to harvest. Because the life you want is not somewhere out there waiting to be found. It is being built right here, right now, one choice at a time. Chapter 10. Curating your circle, choosing people who match your growth. As you begin to grow, as you begin to heal, as you begin to build a life rooted in self-love and self-respect, you will notice something that is both liberating and painful. Not everyone in your life will grow with you. Some people will celebrate your evolution, others will resist it, and a few will actively try to pull you back to who you used to be, because your growth makes them uncomfortable with their own stagnation. This is one of the most difficult truths in the entire self-love journey. The people you care about, the people you have history with, may not be the people who belong in your future, and recognizing that does not make you heartless. It makes you honest. Think about the people in your life right now. Not who they were 5 years ago, who they are today. Who leaves you feeling lighter after a conversation? Who leaves you feeling heavier? Who encourages your growth? Who subtly discourages it? Who respects your boundaries? Who treats them as personal insults? Who shows up with consistency? Who only appears when they need something? These questions are not about keeping score. They are about awareness, because the people you surround yourself with have an enormous influence on the person you become. Their energy becomes your environment. Their patterns become your norms. Their expectations shape your self-perception in ways you do not always recognize. You cannot build a life of self-love while spending most of your time with people who do not respect you. You cannot protect your peace while constantly exposing yourself to people who thrive on chaos. You cannot grow while anchored to relationships that demand you stay the same. And here is something that is important to name. Sometimes the people who hold you back are not evil. They are not trying to hurt you. They are simply operating from their own fears, their own wounds, their own limitations. But their inability to grow does not obligate you to shrink. Their discomfort with your evolution does not require you to stop evolving. Letting go of people is hard, especially the ones you have known for years, especially the ones who were there during your darkest moments. But presence during a dark season does not guarantee compatibility during a growth season. Some people are meant to walk with you for a chapter, not the whole book. And honoring that truth is not betrayal, it is maturity. As you curate your circle, you will notice something beautiful. Space opens up, and into that space walks a different kind of person. People who match your energy, people who challenge you in healthy ways, people who hold you accountable without tearing you down, people who are genuinely happy to see you win, people who do not need you to be small in order for them to feel big. These people exist, but you will not find them in a crowded room full of relationships that drain you. You have to create space first. You have to become the kind of person who attracts that quality of connection by embodying it yourself. Be the friend who listens without judgment. Be the person who supports without conditions. Be the presence that uplifts without agenda. When you embody the qualities you are looking for, you become a magnet for people who carry those same qualities. Your circle is not supposed to be large, it is supposed to be aligned. A few people who truly see you, who truly respect your growth, who truly honor your journey will carry you further than 100 people who only know the surface of who you are. Choose wisely. Your future depends on it. And remember this, you are not responsible for fixing anyone. You are not obligated to keep pouring into people who refuse to grow. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Your love is not a rehabilitation center. Your energy is not an unlimited resource. And the people who deserve to be in your life are the people who add to it, not the ones who consistently subtract from it. As your circle shifts, do not mourn the volume you lost. Celebrate the quality you gained. 5 people who truly see you, who truly respect you, who truly support your growth are worth more than 50 who only know the surface. Depth over width, alignment over numbers, trust over familiarity. That is the formula for a circle that fuels your self-love instead of draining it. Chapter 11. Designing a life that actually fits who you are. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that does not come from working too hard or sleeping too little. It comes from living a life that does not fit you, a life built around someone else's blueprint, a life filled with obligations that do not align with your values, responsibilities that do not feed your soul, and routines that leave you feeling drained before the day even begins. You can love yourself and your mind and still betray yourself with the life you build. You can set boundaries internally and still live in an environment that crosses every single one of them. Self-love is not complete until it becomes structural, until it shapes not just how you think, but how you live. Ask yourself honestly, does the life you're living right now reflect who you truly are? Or does it reflect who you were told to be? Are you waking up each morning excited by the day ahead, or are you dragging yourself through hours that feel like someone else's agenda? Are your relationships nourishing you, or are they depleting you? Is your work meaningful to you, or is it just a paycheck attached to a role that makes you feel invisible? These are not small questions. They are the questions that determine whether your life feels like a home or a waiting room. Building a life that fits you means getting brutally honest about your needs. Not the needs you think you should have, the ones you actually have. The need for quiet in a world that celebrates noise. The need for rest in a culture that worships productivity. The need for simplicity in a society that pushes excess. The need for authenticity in environments that reward performance. Your needs are not inconvenient. They are not signs of weakness. They are the blueprint of your well-being. And when you build your life in alignment with them, something shifts. The tension in your body eases. The noise in your mind quiets. The constant feeling of being slightly out of sync with your own existence begins to fade. Part of building a life that fits means letting go of the parts that do not. The job that crushes your spirit. The relationship that drains your energy. The social obligation that you dread every single time. The habit that numbs you instead of nourishing you. These things must be examined, and when they are found to be misaligned, they must be released, not all at once, but intentionally, gradually, with the understanding that every piece you release creates space for something that actually belongs. And sometimes the life that fits you is quieter than the one the world expects. Sometimes it is smaller. Sometimes it involves fewer people, fewer commitments, fewer accomplishments by society's standards. And that is perfectly fine. Because a life that feels genuinely peaceful on the inside is worth more than a life that looks impressive on the outside but leaves you hollow. You are not here to live someone else's version of a good life. You are here to build one that feels right for you, one where your mornings feel calm instead of chaotic, one where your relationships feel safe instead of stressful, one where your choices align with your values instead of contradicting them, one where you feel like you belong, not in the world's definition, but in your own. That is the kind of life self-love builds. A life that does not betray your needs. A life that fits. Chapter 12. Guarding your inner calm. Like it is the most valuable thing you own. Let me tell you something that took most people far too long to learn. Your peace is the most expensive thing you own. Not your career, not your reputation, not your relationships, your peace. Because without it, none of the rest matters. You can have everything the world considers success and still feel like you are drowning if your inner world is in chaos. Peace is not something that happens to you. It is something you protect. It is something you fight for, not with aggression, but with boundaries, with choices, with the deliberate decision to stop allowing things into your life that steal your calm. Most people lose their peace gradually, not through a single catastrophic event, but through 1,000 small concessions. A toxic conversation here, an unnecessary argument there, a commitment made out of guilt, a boundary crossed that went unaddressed, a person who drains your energy but who you keep letting back in because cutting them off feels too hard. Over time, these small invasions accumulate, and before you know it, your inner world is a crowded, noisy, anxious mess. Protecting your peace begins with identifying the thieves. Who steals your calm? What situations leave you feeling agitated, anxious, or drained? What habits create mental clutter? What content, conversations, or environments consistently pull you out of your center? Once you identify them, you have a choice. And this is where most people get stuck. Because protecting your peace often requires uncomfortable decisions. It requires saying no to people who expect a yes. It requires walking away from conversations that go nowhere except in circles. It requires unfollowing, muting, blocking, distancing, and sometimes cutting ties entirely. And yes, some people will not understand. Some people will call you cold. Some will say you have changed. And they will be right about the change part. You have changed. You have decided that your inner calm is non-negotiable. And that is not cold. That is clarity. Another piece of protecting your peace that often gets overlooked is what you consume. Not just food, information, content, news, social media, conversations. Your mind absorbs everything you expose it to. And if you are constantly feeding it negativity, comparison, drama, and fear, your peace does not stand a chance. Be intentional about your input. Choose content that strengthens your perspective. Choose conversations that elevate your thinking. Choose environments that calm your nervous system instead of activating it. And here's something most people overlook entirely. Your peace is also compromised when you ignore your own internal signals. When your gut tells you something is off and you push through anyway. When your body is screaming for rest and you keep going. When your emotions are trying to tell you something and you bury them under productivity. These signals are your soul's boundary system. And every time you override them, you betray your own peace. Protecting your peace is self-love in its most practical form. It is you saying, my inner world matters, my calm matters, my emotional stability matters, and I will not sacrifice them for anything that does not genuinely deserve my energy. When you protect your peace fiercely, consistently, and without apology, your entire experience of life transforms. You become calmer, your thoughts become clearer, your decisions become sharper. You stop carrying tension in your body. You stop waking up with dread. You stop going to bed with an overactive mind. You start experiencing your life instead of just enduring it. And here is the part that makes all of this worth it. When your inner world is calm, everything you do improves. Your work becomes more focused. Your relationships become more present. Your creativity flows more freely. Your body holds less tension. Your sleep becomes deeper. Your mornings feel lighter. You start experiencing your days instead of just enduring them. Peace is not passive. It is the most active form of self-love you can practice. It requires daily vigilance. It requires constant choices. It requires the courage to say, "This is my inner world, and I am the only one who gets to decide what lives here." Some people will not understand your commitment to peace. They will think you are being dramatic. They will think you are overreacting. They will think you have become distant or cold. Let them think what they want. The people who matter will see it for what it really is: strength, clarity, self-respect. And the people who do not understand were probably the ones disturbing your peace in the first place. Your peace is your power. Guard it accordingly. Chapter 13. Training your mind to be your greatest ally instead of your harshest critic. There is a battle being fought inside your head every single day, and it is arguably the most important battle of your entire life. It is not a battle against circumstances or against other people. It is a battle between two versions of your own voice, the one that lifts you up and the one that tears you down. The critical voice is loud. It is familiar. It has been with you for years, maybe decades. It sounds like truth because it has been repeating the same lines for so long that you stopped questioning them. Lines like, "You are not smart enough. You will probably mess this up. Who do you think you are? Everyone is ahead of you. You do not deserve good things." These thoughts are not facts. They are habits. Mental habits formed during painful seasons and reinforced through years of repetition. And the first step toward changing them is recognizing that you do not have to believe every thought that passes through your mind. You are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them, and there is an enormous difference. A thought says, "You are going to fail," but you have the power to respond. That is fear talking, not truth. A thought says, "You are behind," but you have the ability to counter, "I am exactly where I need to be for the path I am walking." A thought says, "You do not deserve this," and you can choose to reply, "I am learning to believe that I do." Strengthening your mind is not about eliminating negative thoughts. That is unrealistic. Negative thoughts will come. They are part of being human. What changes your life is how you respond to them. Do you engage with them, feed them, and spiral? Or do you notice them, question them, and choose a different direction? Training your mind takes time. It takes consistency. It takes the same kind of discipline that builds any skill. You would not expect to run a marathon without training. You should not expect to overcome years of mental self-sabotage without practice. But every time you catch a destructive thought and consciously replace it, you are building a new neural pathway. Every time you choose encouragement over criticism, patience over judgment, belief over doubt, you are rewiring the way your brain operates. Another essential piece is understanding that not every emotion requires a reaction. Feelings are visitors. They come and they go. You do not have to rearrange your entire life every time an emotion walks through the door. You can acknowledge a feeling without acting on it. You can experience sadness without making a permanent decision. You can feel fear without running. You can feel doubt without quitting. This is emotional maturity, and it is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. The ability to feel deeply without being controlled by what you feel. As your mind becomes your ally instead of your enemy, everything changes. Decisions feel less agonizing. Setbacks feel less catastrophic. Confidence grows, not because you eliminated all doubt, but because you learned to move forward in spite of it. You become someone who trusts themselves, and that trust is the foundation of everything. Every healthy relationship, every bold decision, every moment of peace begins with the belief that you can handle what comes next. And there is one more thing I want you to understand about mental strength. It is not about suppressing your emotions. It is not about pretending everything is fine. It is about creating space between a feeling and a response. It is about learning to sit with discomfort without letting it make your decisions for you. It is about developing the capacity to feel pain and still choose growth, to feel fear and still move forward, to feel doubt and still bet on yourself. That space, the one between feeling and reacting, that is where your power lives. That is where self-love operates at its highest level. Not in the absence of struggle, but in the presence of choice. The choice to respond with intention rather than impulse. The choice to protect your inner world rather than hand the keys to whatever emotion happens to show up loudest. Your mind is the most powerful tool you possess, and it is a tool that can be sharpened, directed, and trained to serve the life you are building. Train it to work for you, not against you. Train it to lift you up, not hold you down. Train it to be the voice that says, "You can do this," instead of the voice that says, "Why bother?" Because the story your mind tells you about yourself is the story you will live. Make sure it is one worth living. Chapter 14, Honoring How Far You Have Come Without Waiting Until You Arrive. I want you to pause for a moment, not to think about what is next, not to plan your next move or analyze your next goal. Just pause and ask yourself this question. When was the last time you genuinely acknowledged your own progress? If you're like most people, the answer is probably not recently, because you have been so focused on the distance between where you are and where you want to be that you have completely ignored the distance between where you started and where you are now. And that distance, the one behind you, that is where your proof lives. Proof that you are capable. Proof that you have endured. Proof that despite every setback, every doubt, every moment where giving up seemed easier than going on, you kept going. That is not nothing. That is everything. And yet you dismiss it. You tell yourself it is not enough because you have not reached the destination yet. You compare your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20 and conclude that you are failing. You move the finish line every time you get close to it, so you never actually feel the satisfaction of arriving. This is one of the most destructive patterns in the pursuit of self-love, the inability to celebrate where you are. Because if you can only love yourself when you arrive, you will never love yourself at all. There is always another level, always another goal, always another version of better. And if your love for yourself is conditional on reaching it, that love will always feel just out of reach. But what if you decided right now to be proud of yourself, not for being perfect, for being persistent? What if you honored the fact that you woke up today and chose to keep trying? What if you gave yourself credit for the boundaries you set, even the ones that trembled in your voice? What if you celebrated the old habits you walked away from, even though walking away was terrifying? Progress is not always visible. Sometimes it is the argument you did not engage in. Sometimes it is the apology you gave yourself. Sometimes it is the moment you paused before reacting. Sometimes it is simply the fact that you are here reading these words, still committed to your growth. Celebrating your progress does not mean you stop striving. It means you stop punishing yourself for not being further along. It means you acknowledge the work you have already done. It means you treat your journey with the respect it deserves, instead of constantly measuring it against an impossible standard. And here is a practice that can change the way you experience your own life. At the end of each day, before you go to sleep, ask yourself one question. What did I do today that I am proud of? It does not have to be something big. Maybe you held a boundary. Maybe you chose rest over guilt. Maybe you spoke kindly to yourself. Maybe you simply got through a hard day without falling apart. Write it down. Acknowledge it. Let it sit in your awareness for a moment before you close your eyes. Over time, this practice rewires the way you see yourself. Instead of going to bed replaying everything you did wrong, you go to bed reminding yourself of what you did right. And that shift, small as it seems, changes everything. It changes the way you wake up. It changes the way you approach the next day. It changes the internal narrative from I am never enough to I am doing better than I give myself credit for. You are becoming. Every single day you are becoming. And the person you are becoming deserves to be celebrated, not just at the finish line, but at every step along the way. Chapter 15. Becoming someone you wake up proud to be. There is a moment in every self-love journey where the focus shifts. You stop looking backward at the person you used to be. You stop looking sideways at the people around you, and you start looking inward at the person you are becoming. That shift is where everything changes, because the ultimate destination of self-love is not a feeling. It is an identity. It is becoming someone whose choices, values, habits, and character align so deeply that you feel genuinely proud of the person you see in the mirror. Not proud in an arrogant way, proud in a quiet, solid, unshakable way. The kind of pride that does not need an audience. The kind that simply knows, I am living as someone I respect. Becoming that person does not require perfection. It requires alignment. It requires making sure that the way you live matches the way you want to feel. It requires integrity, which is simply the practice of doing what you say you will do, especially when no one is watching. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be? Not what kind of career do I want? Not what kind of lifestyle do I want? What kind of human being do I want to be when no one is looking? How do I want to treat people? How do I want to handle difficulty? How do I want to respond when life does not go my way? How do I want to show up for myself? These questions are the compass. And when your daily choices align with the answers, you experience something that no external achievement can give you. Inner peace. The kind that comes from knowing you are living honestly. The kind that comes from knowing your actions match your values. Becoming someone you are proud to love also means forgiving yourself quickly when you fall short. It means recognizing that growth is not a straight path. It means accepting that some days you will be the best version of yourself and other days you will be far from it. And on both kinds of days, you are still worthy. You are still enough. This journey is not about arriving at a final destination. It is about committing every single day to the practice of self-love, to the practice of honesty, to the practice of compassion, to the practice of alignment. And that commitment, repeated over time, transforms everything. Your relationships, your confidence, your peace, your future. You deserve to wake up every morning and feel proud of the person you are choosing to be, not because you are flawless, because you are intentional, because you are brave, because you are growing, and that is the deepest form of self-love there is. Closing words. Loving yourself more than anything else is not a one-time decision. It is not a book you finish and set on a shelf. It is a daily practice that you carry with you into every conversation, every choice, every quiet moment alone with your own thoughts. It is the decision to treat yourself as someone worthy of the same love, patience, and compassion you have always given to others. You have walked through these chapters and uncovered truths about yourself that you may have been avoiding for years. You have confronted borrowed beliefs. You have faced the pattern of self-abandonment. You have set standards. You have practiced discipline. You have shown yourself compassion. You have opened doors you kept locked. You have released versions of yourself that no longer fit. You have planted seeds for your future. You have curated your circle. You have built a life aligned with your needs. You have guarded your peace. You have trained your mind. You have celebrated your progress. And you have begun becoming someone you are truly proud to love. But the journey does not end here. It continues tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day for the rest of your life. Because self-love is not a finish line, it is a way of living. There will be days when doubt creeps back in, days when old patterns try to reclaim their territory, days when you feel tired, uncertain, or lost. That is normal. That is human. On those days, come back to these words. Come back to the truth you have uncovered. Come back to the commitment you have made. And most importantly, come back to yourself. You are worthy of love, not because of what you do, not because of what you achieve, not because of who accepts you. You are worthy because you exist. And the moment you truly believe that, everything changes. Carry this truth with you. Write it somewhere you will see it. Whisper it to yourself on the mornings when getting out of bed feels heavy. Repeat it on the nights when doubt tries to creep back in. You are worthy. You are enough. You have always been enough. The only thing that was ever missing was your belief in that truth. And now, having walked through this journey, you have the tools to build that belief, not in one day, but day by day, choice by choice, breath by breath. The world needs the version of you that loves yourself fully, not the exhausted version that gives from an empty cup, not the performing version that wears masks to be accepted. The real you, the honest you, the grounded, peaceful, self-respecting you. That version of you has something to offer that no one else can, because no one else has your story. No one else has your perspective. No one else has your heart. This is your life. This is your journey. And you, just as you are, with all your imperfections, all your scars, all your unfinished edges, are more than enough to walk it beautifully. So walk, with your head held high, with your heart wide open, with the unwavering knowledge that you are loved not by the world, but by the person who matters most. You.